And now here's the weather for today, August 4th, 2040. It's going to be another scorcher. The temperature's again near the 110 mark. You can be happy, though, you're not living in the Midwest's famous oven. The Chicago thermometer has simmered over 100 degrees for the 63rd consecutive day, topping the all-time record set in 2023. Well, Diane, looks like more hot times ahead.
Thank you, Hal. We have a bulletin just in. Rising sea levels due to global warming have again taken a toll, this time in the area north of the former city of New Orleans. 2 kilometers of dikes burst when Hurricane Elena hit the coast last night. The first sketchy reports say only that the flood has been devastating. In New York, a manufacturer has announced a line of refrigerated clothes for men and women, which are far less bulky than our current ones. That's good news for those of you who can afford the price tag. Following the sharp outcry across Canada over Americans moving there from our barren Midwest, the Canadian Parliament is considering legislation limiting the number of U.S. citizens who may enter their country. Unemployed farm workers will probably be exempt from the law. 2 local items. The City Council voted yesterday to prohibit installation of any more air conditioners within city limits until the new solar power center is completed next winter. And the power company wants us to remind you that power will be shut off today in zones 5 and 6 between 10 a.m. and 5 o'clock. So close your windows.
That look you just had into the next century might turn out to be a little bit exaggerated, but, you know, a lot of very respectable scientists feel that it might be right on target. Whatever, the thinking is that we're in for some serious changes. You've heard about it. Global warming. Now, if you've been staying up nights wondering about all this talk and what you could do about it, then you've just stumbled into the right movie. And if you haven't been thinking about it at all, might be a good time to start. So here I am in a greenhouse, which helps explain what's happening to our planet. And this is Anna Mayers, who knows everything about this place. Anna, how does this place work?
Well, in a greenhouse, the sun's light is transmitted through the glass, and it warms everything in here. The air, the plants, the soil. But the panes of glass keep the air from circulating, so heat and moisture are trapped here. And the temperatures get warmer and warmer. It's really very simple.
The greenhouse effect is the term we use to describe the way that some chemicals in the Earth's atmosphere trap heat energy in the system before it can escape to space. And this is a natural effect, but the serious part of it is due to the fact that we're amplifying and accelerating the natural greenhouse effect by adding more of the chemicals that have the properties of greenhouse gases. 3 to 5 degrees is a good guess at how much the average temperatures might warm up in the middle latitudes of the Earth, say the U.S., in the next half a century or so. But those aren't the numbers that really should bother us. The average temperatures don't matter so much as the extremes.
Hey, we're not talking about boiling seas or fiery skies. It's just a couple of degrees, right? What's the big deal?
This is the first time in human history that we've had technologies powerful enough to make the Earth uninhabitable. I think if we wait another 10 years, it's going to be too late to get global warming under control, because by then a lot of bad things will start to happen that feed on each other and make the problem worse and worse, so we can't control it.
Personally, I think what'll happen is super hot years like 1988 with super hurricanes like Gilbert, or in '89 Hurricane Hugo. Events that now happen once in 50 years will start happening once in 30 and once in 20. And then people will start asking early in the next century, what is nature doing to us? It's not nature doing to us, it's what we're doing to nature and to ourselves.
You're probably wondering, why is this all happening now? And to me, what did I do to deserve this? Well, come on, I'll show you. Mom and Dad who pay the mortgage, this is home. But if you're talking global warming, this is a greenhouse gas factory. Global warming is a direct result of modern living. So every time you or I do this, or this. Or this. CO2. That's carbon dioxide, gets released into the air. Where, you say? I don't see it. It's right here. Every time we use electricity at home, at school, or on the job, some power plant somewhere is probably burning coal, gas, or oil, fossil fuels, to supply us with the juice. In fact, power plants burning fossil fuels produce more CO2 gases than any other source. And who uses this power? We all do, but industry uses a big chunk of it. Here, see this stuff, and this stuff, and this stuff, and this stuff? Industry uses power to make all the stuff that we use, wear, eat, and throw away. Then industry just goes on making more. Another really big CO2 villain? This little monster and its gasoline engine do a lot of damage. Drive 10,000 miles a year. Figure you've just spewed over 4 tons of invisible CO2 into the atmosphere. 4 tons. One person, one car. Multiply that by hundreds of millions of cars and trucks on the road all over the world. Old ones, new ones, they all produce CO2. And it isn't just modern living. The massive burning of rainforests in South America and burning wood for fuel in less developed countries also release CO2 into the air. It all adds to the total. And you know what? Carbon dioxide is only half the problem. You've also got other gases. All that garbage we throw away and all that rotting vegetation all over the world produce a harmful gas called methane. Another nasty one is CFCs. That's an easier way to say chlorofluorocarbons. This is a gas used as a coolant in air conditioners and refrigerators and for blowing up styrofoam. About those CFCs, well, some companies are already talking about how they've developed a substitute for this stuff called HFCs. Now, this may help the ozone layer, but it certainly doesn't help the global warming hazard. So you have to be wary of all the Save Our Planet advertising you read or hear about on TV, because sometimes they don't tell you the whole story. Then there's nitrous oxide and a bunch of other gases that add another big chunk. Lots of this stuff ends up there high in the atmosphere, trapping in the heat.
The time to get global warming under control is now. We need to use energy a lot more efficiently, start switching to renewable sources, keep the carbon in our trees and soil where it belongs, get rid of the CFCs that are screwing up the air. And if we get started now and really pay attention, I think we can solve this problem before it gets out of control.
It's common for people to blame environmental problems on deforestation or on polluting automobiles or smokestacks, but that's only part of the story. Ultimately, who uses that stuff? Us. It's population growth that's driving the technologies that destroy the environment. So not only do we have to clean up our technologies and halt things like deforestation, but we've got to cut down fundamentally the growth rate on our own numbers so that there are fewer of us that can have a better life with less environmental impact in the next century.
Well, all right. Whatever happened to the nuclear energy solution? No polluting smokestacks. But there were other kinds of problems. Our first jolt came with the 3 Mile Island meltdown, and then the disaster at Chernobyl. And how could we store deadly plutonium safely for 10,000 years? Not many people today think that nuclear energy will be a long-term solution. Maybe you've heard about the first energy crisis back in the 1970s? America panicked when the Middle East raised the price of their oil dramatically. Nothing like a little panic to get America moving. We started to think about alternative sources of energy. A lot of people put up solar panels to use the sun's energy to heat their water and homes. Wind energy was another clean source of power that we began developing. Even growing plants can be a renewable source of energy. This corn can be brewed to produce a form of alcohol. When it's mixed with gasoline, it burns cleaner than the fossil fuel it replaces and cuts down on global warming gases. Here's a power plant run by the sun. These panels concentrate sunlight to heat long tubes filled with a heavy liquid. This liquid is carried to a power plant nearby where it makes steam and generates electricity. No coal burning, no oil burning, no CO2. Another way to convert the sun's energy directly into electricity is through the use of photovoltaic cells. This is one of the cells. Now, when sunlight falls on it, it gives off a trickle of electricity. But put hundreds of thousands of these cells together, all tracking the sun across the sky, and you can equal the output of a small power plant. Want to amaze your friends? You might try building one of these. These students are building an experimental car, the Solar Eagle, using photovoltaic cells to directly convert the sun's energy to engine power. This gives you an idea of how much electricity photovoltaic cells can generate. This may not be the car you'll have in your garage a few years from now. But this electric car, which runs on batteries, may be the car of the future. It's sleek and fast, and from a standing start, it can beat some of the quickest cars around. Electric cars promise to revolutionize how we will move about, and they will help reduce global warming, particularly when we get the electricity from solar power plants.
Our energy system is so big and complicated, it'll probably take about 30 to 50 years to displace the environmentally harmful things we do, like burning fossil fuels, with benign renewable sources. And the only way we're going to buy that time and make the renewable energy future practical and affordable is to use energy a lot more efficiently.
What's the biggest energy user in most homes? This bad boy right here. Back about 20 years ago, the United States needed 34 large power plants just to run the inefficient refrigerators they had then. Now, if they'd kept that up, adding more and more refrigerators each year, by now they'd figured they'd need about 200 power plants just to keep our drinks cold. More panic. Guess what? All it took was for California to pass a law saying that manufacturers couldn't sell there unless they made more efficient refrigerators. Well, manufacturers got to work, and they did a good job, too. This baby really is more efficient. In a couple of years, they're only going to need 1/5 the amount of power plants they thought they were going to need. How's that for a way to slow up CO2 emissions? Through laws and building regulations, we've changed all sorts of other things so that they can use less energy. Buildings, for instance. Big ones, with weather-efficient windows that reflect heat. Or small ones, with improved insulation and energy-efficient design. Another way that industry can make a contribution to saving power is by a process called cogeneration. That's when factories capture the waste heat they create and use it to warm the factory and other buildings in the neighborhood. "20 years ago, nobody would have even thought about the mileage that a car gets. See, but this baby gets 50 miles to the gallon. So the auto industry can do it. It just takes a little arm twisting. See, this progress is just the beginning. We need to do a lot more to cut down on the amount of energy we use in our cars, in our homes, in our big buildings, and industries everywhere.
some people get the impression that businesses don't like the idea of protecting the environment. After all, if we put a tax on fuels, which is going to make it pollute less, that's going to hurt industries. Well, there are some industries that don't like it. The coal industry wouldn't like that. The natural gas industry loves it because natural gas is a much less polluting fuel than coal. The industries that make efficient technologies, that make high-intensity efficient light bulbs and new windows, they think this is great. This is good for business. So there's no such thing as a single thing that's bad for business. Some businesses win, some lose. But shouldn't the ones win that are more efficient? Isn't that what a good system is all about?
About now, you're probably wondering, where do I fit in? Well, chances are you're already in. Millions of people like you and me are creating pressure. So much pressure that some of our greatest industrial polluters are making noises about how much they care about the planet. Even politicians and presidents are climbing on the bandwagon. You know, this is a national problem. Actually, it's a global problem, but a lot of little bits add up to a big bite. Here's a little bit. See this? This is a new kind of fluorescent. It gives off the same amount of light as a regular bulb and uses 1/4 the electricity. So as soon as a lot of people start doing this, it'll add up to a big bite.
One compact fluorescent light bulb over its life keeps a ton of CO2 out of the air. Or if it were saving enough oil, it would save enough oil to run your family car 1,000 miles or to run a super efficient car entirely across the country and back. One light bulb does this, and you can screw it in yourself.
Air conditioners are killers when it comes to using energy. People who live in houses have other ways they can help keep cool.
At the turn of the century, before we had so-called cheap energy, we designed our homes in a way that could help to keep them cool in the summer without the use of air conditioning or any high energy use appliance. One of the ways we did that was to design these deep overhanging eaves that shaded the windows of the house in the summertime, thereby keeping it cooler inside. And yet they did allow the winter sun, when it was lower on the horizon, to come in the home and warm it in the wintertime. So that's simple technology that we used to use that we've forgotten about.
People who live in houses and don't put insulation into the attic ought to have their heads examined. Much less need for air conditioning or running the furnace. You may not think of recycling as a good way to save energy, but it takes 20 times as much energy to make these cans from scratch as it does to remake them from recycled cans. Anything you can recycle is likely to save energy as well as being nice to the planet in other ways. These kids have the right idea.
The recycling program at our high school began when many students were concerned with the fact that we haven't been recycling. Several students presented the idea of recycling to the associated student body, and we asked them, you know, would it be a good idea? Should we start doing it? And they agreed to it, and they thought it'd be wonderful. And so they bought several trash cans. They painted them bright red, and they cut big holes at the top for people to throw their cans in, and it's been a huge success. And because of the success with the aluminum cans, certain clubs at our school have proceeded to start recycling programs with paper. And students have been just recycling notebook paper, whatever. I think students take the idea of recycling home with them and recycle even more. Because we've been so successful, we've really been a model school to other schools in the district who have begun recycling on their campuses.
You see these leaves? They're actually clean air factories. They take CO2 out of the air in the process of making food for the tree. So thousands of leaves times millions of trees could actually help reduce global warming. Andy Lipkiss is someone who knows how important trees can be in improving our environment. When he was in his teens, he founded an organization called Tree People. Through their efforts, tens of thousands of volunteers have planted more than 100 million trees across the country and around the world. And they've been planted not just in parks and wilderness areas, but up and down the streets of our cities. Trees can help to make our communities more livable, cooler and more beautiful, and help reduce global warming.
There's something critical about planting a tree, about investing a piece of ourselves and realizing how much power we have, and that we really do have an incredible impact. As simple as planting a tree is, as simple as it seems, it has a profound impact in changing a city. We've all heard the saying, you can make a difference. Well, you do make a difference. We all make a difference with every step we take. What tree planting does is give us a chance to see how much of a difference we make.
Okay, but you got to do it right, and that includes taking care of your tree. There's another little bit. When was the last time you planted a tree?
The most important thing is to use resources responsibly, to have in mind how what we do will affect all those others in the world and also those who aren't here yet. The largest number of people is those who haven't been born yet. And it's very important that we bear in mind their needs in all of our decisions on what we use. Is what we're doing really necessary, and are we doing it the best way we can?
In that sense, I'm quite optimistic. And what makes me more optimistic than anything is that people around the world are demanding their environment be clean, not just so they can see further, but because they recognize it's part of their health, their economy, and their ethical part of the earth. And that makes me feel we can make a big difference in what the 21st century will be like.
This is still a pretty nice planet. I'm going to live on it way into the next century, and so are you. But unless a lot of us get up off our apathy and do something, I mean, really work to make changes, I think it's going to be a very different world than the one we know now. And personally, I like this one. What about you?